So here we are in the Folklore cabin, which we brought all the way to Liverpool. We are currently in the Folklore era, as you can tell by all the trees and moss, and of course the cabin. This album means a lot to me because it was more than an album for me. It was like an entire fantasy pretend world. And I kind of created that world because I started writing this album 2 days into the pandemic. And it was really like all of us were kind of trying to figure out what was going on in the world, in our lives. And I think we all kind of like, you know, turned to different methods of escapism, and mine was creating, first of all, a way to not feel so isolated, right? Like, I could feel like I was connected to you guys still in some way if I was writing music. And so that's what I did. And yeah, so like, I basically created this album that had this entire world. And when I was writing this album, I could pretend that I was like a poetic Victorian lady wearing an old nightgown, wandering through the woods, holding like a candle, and writing only with a quill and ink on parchment paper, and living in this house. That was my pretend world. That was what I pretended. Whereas the reality was more like me being a lonely millennial woman, drinking more white wine than ever, and covered in cat hair, and watching endless hours of movies and TV to pass the time. But in Folklore world, it was just much, much cuter. And when I would go into this world in my mind, I would just make up stories, and that's what kind of put together Folklore. It was all these made-up stories with made-up characters, and I'd have the characters fall in love, and the characters would get their hearts broken, and that was honestly a blast, and I love writing that way. And here's a story that I wrote about a girl named Betty.